What happens when a really radical new message meets an ancient city, one that's, buzzing with ideas?
It's quite a moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Today, we're diving deep into this extraordinary point in history. Really, it offers timeless lessons for all of us.
Mm.
Our mission here is to unpack a kind of practical framework. How do you engage with a curious world, understand a core message, and, importantly, see how it applies to our lives, even now?
And we're drawing heavily from the story of the Apostle Paul in Athens. His really strategic, masterful approach, it's mainly there in Acts chapter 17.
It is an incredible scene, just picturing Paul arriving there.
Yeah, and it's key to remember, this wasn't like a holiday trip to Greece, right? He wasn't there to sightsee.
Not at all.
He was on a second big missionary journey. He just had to flee intense persecution, first from Thessalonica, then Berea. He even left Silas and Timothy behind for a bit.
So this was serious business, a critical work trip, you could say.
Definitely. And the account says when he got to Athens, his spirit was stirred up, provoked even, because the city was just full of idols, wholly given to idolatry.
That was been overwhelming.
It compelled him to act. He couldn't just stand by.
Okay, so let's unpack that arrival. He gets to Athens, this hub of philosophy, ancient gods. What's his first move? Does he, rent a hall, send out flyers?
Aha! No, nothing like that. It was much more organic and strategic. First, he did engage with the Jewish community and, the devout Gentiles in the synagogue. That was his natural starting point.
Makes sense.
But then, crucially, he went to the marketplace, the agora, every day.
The agora. Not just for buying stuff, right?
Exactly. It was the absolute heart of Athens. Culture, society, philosophy, news, everything was debated and exchanged there. It was the place to be if you wanted to reach people, to be where the real conversations were happening.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because Athens wasn't just any city. It was the intellectual capital. He wasn't talking to just any one.
No, he encountered these two major philosophical groups, the Epicureans and the Stoics.
Right. Can you remind us, what were their sort of core ideas? How did they set the stage for the challenge Paul faced?
Sure. And it's fascinating because their worldviews were just so fundamentally different from Paul's message. Take the Epicureans. They were really focused on pleasure.
Like hedonism. Parties all the time.
Well, not quite as we might think of it. Their goal was more about achieving a state of tranquility, a happy life free from pain, and, crucially, free from fear, especially fear of death or divine judgment.
Ah, okay. Because they didn't believe in consequences after death.
Pretty much. Their outlook was kind of like eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. So any talk of future accountability, that just didn't fit.
All right. A direct clash with Paul's message then.
Absolutely. And then you had the Stoics. Very different vibe. They valued self-sufficiency, reason, virtue, and enduring hardship with indifference.
So proud resilience, not swayed by pleasure or pain.
Exactly. True virtue for them came from living in accordance with nature and reason, being sort of emotionally detached from external events. They took pride in their ability to withstand anything.
So again, a worldview centered on human capability and control.
Yes. Both philosophies, really, focused on self-reliance or finding satisfaction in this world, which put them at odds with Christianity's message of dependence on God, human sinfulness, and, well, future judgment.
It really shows you these deep human tendencies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Seeking control, seeking comfort, maybe outside of God.
For sure. And so their initial reactions to Paul, they were mixed, as you'd expect.
Yeah, the account says some mocked him, called him a babbler, basically asking, what's this guy even talking about?
Right. Others thought he was promoting foreign gods because he was preaching about Jesus and the resurrection.
It sounds less like a genuine search for deep truth and more like, well, you use the phrase kicking tires, just checking out the latest idea.
That's a great way to put it. They were curious, yes, but maybe not seeking personal transformation. It fits with what we know about the Greek mindset at the time.
How so?
Well, Paul himself wrote elsewhere, didn't he, that Jews tend to look for miraculous signs while Greeks seek after wisdom.
Ah, right, 1 Corinthians.
Exactly. So Paul's message about a crucified Messiah, that was a stumbling block for Jews, and the resurrection. To the Greek intellectual mind, that sounded like utter foolishness. It didn't fit their philosophical frameworks.
They valued reason, logic,
Yeah.
a dead person coming back to life.
Beyond the pale for many of them, yeah.
But still, their curiosity, even if maybe a bit superficial, it led somewhere important. They invited him to Mars Hill.
The Areopagus, yeah. To formally explain this new doctrine.
Because, as the text says, Athenians and the foreigners there spent their time in nothing else but either to tell or to hear some new thing.
Intellectual tourists, almost. Always hunting for the next trend.
Sounds a bit familiar, maybe.
Maybe just a bit. But yeah, this invitation set the stage for Paul's big address, a real masterclass in communication.
And what an address. This is where Paul's genius really shines, I think. He doesn't start by tearing them down or judging them.
No, absolutely not. He meets them exactly where they are. He speaks truth, yes, but with love and incredible cultural awareness.
How does he start? What's his opening?
He actually begins by acknowledging their religiosity. He says something like, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. Or perhaps better translated, very religious.
Okay, so he finds common ground.
Precisely. And then he points to something concrete they could all see. An altar he'd noticed with the inscription, to the unknown God.
Ah, the famous altar.
Right, and he uses that as his bridge. He says, okay, this God you worship without knowing, that's the one I'm here to tell you about.
Wow, that's brilliant. He takes their own practice, their own admission of not knowing everything, and uses it as the entry point.
Instantly builds a connection. He's not just some outsider yelling. He's engaging with their world.
So, having built that bridge, he starts laying out the truth about this God they didn't know. What are the key things he tells them?
Well, first, he presents God as the ultimate creator and sustainer. He says God made the world and all things therein. He's Lord of heaven and earth.
Okay, big foundational claims.
Huge. And crucially, this God doesn't live in temples made by human hands, unlike the idols all around them.
Right, he's bigger than any building.
And he isn't served by human hands as though he needs anything from us. Because, Paul says, he giveth to all life and breath and all things.
That turns their whole idea of worship on its head, doesn't it? They thought the gods needed temples, sacrifices.
Exactly. Paul's saying, no, God is the source of everything. We need him. He doesn't need us in that dependent way.
Okay, so creator, sustainer. What else? Did he talk about humanity?
Oh, yes. Very powerfully. He says, God hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth.
One blood, all nations.
Yeah.
That's huge, even today.
It really is. It completely undermines any basis for racial or national arrogance. We all come from the same source, share the same fundamental humanity.
And the same spiritual need, presumably.
That's the implication. And Paul adds that God determined our times and the boundaries of where we live. There's a sovereignty there.
So God's in charge,
Mm-hmm.
and he's made us all. Does he suggest we should know this already?
He does. It ties into what Paul writes elsewhere in Romans, that God's invisible qualities, his power, his divine nature, have been clearly seen since the creation of the world, understood from what has been made.
So people are without excuse, as Romans puts it. Creation itself points to the Creator.
That's the idea. Nature, reason itself, should lead us to acknowledge him.
Now, this is where Paul does something really clever, isn't it? He starts quoting their own writers.
Yeah, this is masterful. He quotes Greek poets. He says, for in him we live and move and have our being, citing one of them.
Well,
And then, for we are also his offspring, citing another. He's essentially saying, look, even your own thinkers have glimpsed parts of this truth.
he's validating their own wisdom, finding points of agreement before correcting or clarifying.
Exactly. He affirms what he can. But then he pivots. He says, if we are God's offspring, then surely we shouldn't think the Godhead is like gold or silver or stone, graven by art and man's device.
Ah, so he uses their own poets to critique their idolatry.
Precisely. He's saying, your own best minds point to something greater than these statues you worship. It's gentle, but firm.
It's really a masterclass in contextual communication.
Mm.
Okay, so he's established God as creator, sovereign, knowable through creation, even hinted at by their poets. Where does he go next? This feels like it's building to something.
It absolutely is. After laying this careful foundation, Paul delivers the turning point, the call to repentance.
Ah, okay. This is where it gets direct.
Very direct. He says that in the past, God winked at the times of ignorance, meaning he overlooked it, allowed it for a time. But now, Paul declares, God commandeth all men everywhere to repent.
Wow. From past ignorance to present command, that's a shift.
A huge shift. No more excuses. Ignorance isn't bliss anymore. There's a universal call to change one's mind and direction, to turn towards this true God. It puts the responsibility squarely on humanity.
And then he drops the real bombshell, right?
Yeah.
The part that probably sounded the most radical to these Athenian intellectuals.
Yes. The resurrection and judgment. He concludes by saying, God hath appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness.
Judgment Day.
by
Okay.
that man whom he hath ordained, clearly pointing to Jesus, whereof he hath given assurance unto all men, and that he hath raised him from the dead.
The resurrection, that's the proof, the
That's
assurance.
the guarantee, Paul says. The fact that God raised Jesus from the dead is the ultimate validation of his authority and the certainty of future judgment.
You can just imagine how that landed, these philosophers debating logic and reason. And
Yeah.
Paul talks about a man literally raised from the dead.
Yeah, for many, that would have been the point where it just sounded, well, crazy. It defied their understanding of the world.
Mm.
They were curious, sure, but maybe not that curious.
So after this powerful, radical speech, what happened? What was the immediate reaction on Mars Hill?
Well, it was pretty much split, just as you might guess. The account in Acts is very direct. Some mocked.
Mocked, even after all that careful groundwork.
Yep. For some, the resurrection part was just too much, laughable perhaps. But then others said, "We will hear thee again of this matter."
Ah, the deferral. Interesting stuff. Let's talk later. Maybe genuinely curious, maybe just putting it off.
Hard to say for sure. It shows that range of responses, doesn't it? Outright rejection, intellectual curiosity, maybe procrastination.
But it wasn't all mockery or delay, was it? Did anyone actually believe?
Yes. And this is crucial. Despite the mixed reactions, the text says some people clave unto him and believed.
They stuck with Paul.
Yes, and it even names a couple of them. Dionysius the Areopagite, someone likely connected to that very council, and a woman named Damaris, and others with them.
So real transformation happened. Paul's presence, his message, it actually changed lives right there in Athens.
Absolutely. It wasn't just an intellectual exercise for everyone. For some, it was life-changing.
And then Paul, he just leaves.
Pretty much.
Yep.
The account says he departed from among them and went on to Corinth. He did his part.
Which brings us to a really important point, maybe for us today. Our role is to, what? Share the message.
Exactly. Share the information, share the truth as we understand it, engage with people thoughtfully like Paul did. And then, and this is key, we need to sort of detach from the outcome, from our own perception of success.
Because it's not up to us who believes.
Right. We plant the seed, maybe someone else waters it, but as Paul says elsewhere, God gives the increase. The Lord works in his own way, in his own time. Our job is faithfulness to the message.
That's actually quite freeing, isn't it? Takes the pressure off a bit.
It really does. It's about reflecting the truth, living it out like people saw Christ living in Paul.
Okay, so let's try and boil this down. What are some key takeaways for us listening now, drawing from Paul's whole experience in Athens?
Well, the first one has to be this foundational truth Paul laid out. God is actually close and knowable.
Not distant, not uninterested.
Not at all. He's not some impersonal force or an idea we can't grasp. He cares about us. Think about promises like, seek me and find me when you shall search for me with all your heart.
That's Jeremiah, right?
Yeah. Or James saying, draw nigh to God and he will draw nigh to you. God invites relationship.
So if someone listening is wondering, does God even care about my life?
Yeah,
Paul's message and these other scriptures say a resounding yes.
absolutely. Lean into that question. Seek him. Ask him. He wants to be found.
Okay, takeaway one, God is near and knowable. What's another one?
I think a big one is the call to disengage from living on autopilot.
Autopilot, like just going through the motions.
Yeah, exactly. It's so easy to just, punch the clock, do the routine, go home, zone out, repeat. Paul's example, his urgency, challenges that.
He was actively engaging, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Stirred up, speaking out.
Right. There's this sense of needing to awake out of sleep, as Paul puts it in Romans. The time is now. Salvation is nearer than when we first believed.
So there's an urgency to live intentionally.
Definitely. Another proverb says, ponder the path of thy feet and let all thy ways be established. Think about where you're going, because if you're just drifting on autopilot, well, other things can start steering you, right? Negative influences, bad habits, they can take control without you even realizing it.
Good point. So
Yeah.
wake up, be intentional. Okay, what's a third key takeaway?
This comes straight from Paul's method on Mars Hill. Meet people where they are and always speak the truth in love.
Right. No judgment, no condemnation first.
Exactly. We're all human. We've all fallen short. Paul wasn't there to bash them. He was there to offer deliverance, a way to God. He understood they couldn't rely on their own goodness or philosophical systems alone.
And his framework was key. God as creator, sustainer, near to us.
That foundation allows for a meaningful conversation. And then his adaptability. Remember 1 Corinthians 9. To the weak I became as weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some.
So being flexible in your approach, Not compromising truth, but willing to enter their world.
Precisely. Understand their perspective, find common ground like Paul did with the altar and the poets, and then build bridges to the truth.
And again, remembering that we just plant and water.
But God gives the increase. Yeah, we do our part faithfully, lovingly, strategically like Paul, but the results are ultimately in God's hands. We don't have to carry the burden of converting everyone we talk to.
Share faithfully, detached from the outcome.
Okay.
Got it.
It's about faithfulness, not just results as we define them.
You know, speaking of results and transformation, it reminds me of something funny a friend once said. He was really struggling with this complex project at work, just hitting a wall, and he sighed and said, "Man, I don't think I need a new strategy. I think I need a different brain."
Huh. I think we can all relate to that feeling sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it makes me think that longing to be better, more capable. Paul's message, ending with a resurrection, which sounded so wild to the Athenians, it actually points to this credible hope, doesn't it? A future transformation, maybe even getting that revamped resurrection body we all kind of long for sometimes.
That's a great connection. Yeah, it offers a hope that goes way beyond just philosophical debates or earthly endurance, a genuine radical transformation.
So Paul laid out these profound truths. Creator God, human accountability, the need for repentance, the promise of resurrection, knowing full well some would laugh, some would delay, and some would actually believe. It makes you think, doesn't it? What does your response, Paul, our response listening today, what does it reveal about our own curiosity, our willingness to really engage with deep truths, especially the ones that might challenge us or not immediately fit our neat little boxes?
Yeah. Are we mockers, delayers, or are we willing to really grapple with it, like Dionysius and Damaris? What kind of seeker are you?
That's definitely something to chew on. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Paul's time in Athens. We really hope you continue your own exploration of new knowledge and perspectives.